can't think of is that these poor dogs are probably thinking to themselves, being fed this cookie or cake, like, oh boy, I'm getting another peanut butter treat or another flavor treat. What the heck did they just give me? What the heck? Not good. So, but this 12-year-old girl, Anne, she actually goes. Not only is she going after human beings, but she's also going after dogs. So maybe she just had a few issues with a few dogs in the neighborhood over the years. So she convinced the authorities that not only were black cats witches familiars, working with witches, but she also convinced the authorities that dogs in the neighborhood were also witches familiars, and that she said that she actually, said one of the dogs gave her the evil eye, and the dog spoke to her, saying that the dog was working with one of the witches, and so she had a couple dogs shot or strangled on her request, unfortunately. Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
that's sad.
So we'll head up the street to the witch house.
They shot,
This shot.
not the cheddars. Oh, I like how the wrist. You get these cheddars or not.
Where's Teddy's?
He's at home, the problem.
Ah.
This cheddar. He's got a little cold. He's only 30.
That is sad.
What, the dogs?
No,
Oh, the girls.
the girls accused of being a witch.
And they were just innocent people, man.
And yeah, and then later on, the lady apologized for lying.
No, she said the devil made her do it.
She died eventually.
I mean, she's not alive now, then she'd really be a witch.
Maybe she was the real witch.
Maybe.
That's how they make money in SALEM. And what he said, it's good for the tourists. So the witch house is not a witch house.
No, that's where the judge
That's where the judge who judged to kill the
Yeah, to hang
accused witches. So the witch house is that black house.
Yeah, on the corner.
Scars might lead them to believe that they were actually the signs of the devil or witchcraft. So, as far as I know, none of these women ever had any of these.
The hallowed harvest, Salem. We're going to a tour to see the witch. To see the witch or the witch house. Right there, the black house is the witch house. Are we on downtown Salem, Massachusetts? How long we been walking? A mile? Too long? We're going to a witch. Here is the witch. Here is the witch. Hello, sir. How you doing, sir? Hello, how you doing, sir? Nice decorations. So that's the witch house there, the black one. Okay, let's cross the road. It's a nice witch house, huh?
That's where the judge lives.
That's where the judge live. The judge that tell the witch to kill the witch.
Yeah.
picked up the witch house behind it and moved it several feet over to the left. So my grandparents remember that until the 1940s, this was a single-lane road, a one-lane road in and out of town. The city wanted a two-lane road, so they just picked up the house and moved it several feet over to the left, creating this two-lane road that you see today in front of us. But from what I've been told by a number of people over the years, there's really nothing original to the house except for the summer beams, the support beams inside the house. Everything else, outside, inside, is all part of the major restoration of the property done in the 1940s and 1950s. But like I said earlier in the tour, the city just chose to go with the name the Witch House simply because it was owned by a witchcraft trial judge, Judge Corwin, for many, many years. But does anybody have any questions? No? We're inside a little memorial park for a gentleman who coined the term Old Glory. His house stood on this spot in the 19th century. So right behind you is this memorial rock for a gentleman by the name of Captain William Driver. He coined the term Old Glory for the flag, American flag, flew on his ships. And that one of his original Old Glory flags that he owned, his family donated to the Smithsonian Museum. It's there today for people to see, I guess, when it's on display. But does anybody want to see Allison's house for Hocus Pocus? I know.
Yes.
All right. We every so often throw in some fictional stuff to kind of lighten the mood because we are dealing with some, difficult material, especially with Anne and her obsession with, accusing people of being witches, including these little dogs as well. So we'll bring you. It's about 2 doors down here on the right, out this path here, and it's a big white house. And the museum that owns it is now decorating it for Halloween.
We just crossed the street. Now we're gonna cross the street again. Ay, ay, ay. Which house? That house. Where'd he go? The tour guy. The tour guide. That's the bus in Salem, Massachusetts. We are walking. Walking. Mega love, shout out everyone. Di ko kayo makita. Pakita ko sa inyo yung witch house dito sa Salem, Massachusetts. Nilive ko na para hindi na ako mag-edit. Ayan o, yung witch house. Ang ganda ng bahay.
In the 1990s, 1993, Disney comes to town, decorates up the outside of the house with even more decorations than what you see today.
It's nice.
And that became Allison's house in Hocus Pocus. They never actually filmed inside the house, but the house is open for tours on the weekends. If you want to come back in the future on the weekend, take a guided tour of the house. But the gardens behind the house, those are open right now. They're open to the public for free, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And it's a nice little garden in the back and garden. But we're in the middle of a historic district. This is the Samuel McIntyre Historic District. He designed and built a lot of these beautiful homes in the 18th and early 19th century, including the Ropes Mansion and the church right next door to it. That church was built in 1837.
Wow.
The sign says First Church of Salem, 1629, but the original church, original First Church of Salem, that was built in 1629 around the corner. It's long gone. And eventually, by the 1830s, it ended up over here, and it's been here since 1837 with this building that you see today. And they still hold services there. It's a Unitarian church, but kind of a Romanesque style architecture. But does anybody have any questions so far? No. Now, want to mention, we'll bring you back to the little park and out of the sidewalk for everybody. And I want to talk to you quickly about Susanna Martin. She was accused of being a witch because she
We are walking back. We're not going inside the witch house? Oh, just the outside? Oh, I thought we are going inside. Whose house was it again? The child?
No, it was the judge.
The White House?
No.
The witch house?
White House is in a middle. That's the witch house.
Oh, the gray one is the witch house? That's the judge house.
But
So-
the city bought it and called it witch house because nobody wants to visit the judge house.
Correct. So no one lives there now? Okay, so we cannot go in?
I don't know.
Are we crossing the street again?
I don't know.
We cannot go inside the witch house, huh?
So yeah, Susanna Martin was accused by her neighbor of sending her dogs on him and attacking him, and so he went over to Susanna Martin's house in 1692, and she had her dog, I guess, had given birth to half a dozen or more puppies, and he went over to grab a puppy for his kids. And he said that in court he testified against her, saying that she tried to send him home with one of the smallest, sickest dogs and got into an argument with her, yelled at her, she said some things, he said some things, and then he turned around and walked away without the dogs. And he claimed that she said she was going to send her dogs on him, her dogs on this man. And he said he was walking down the road, and all of a sudden he said, out of the blue, these what he referred to as phantom
That's the
puppies
witch
came out of
house,
nowhere
guys.
and circled him and
See the sign over there, witch
touched his
house.
face, bit him, and then they disappeared as quickly as they showed
There.
up. And he was so
Witch
scared and
house.
nervous and confused. He said he claimed he never mentioned any of this to his neighbors or friends and family. And then he said a few days later, he said, in court, Susanna Martin bumped into him at a shop here in Salem and said to him, how are those scratches doing? I hope my dogs didn't hurt you too much. And he said, the only way she would have known that is if she was the one who sent her dogs on me, attacked me. So he said that alone means that she must be a witch.
Ah,
Because how did these dogs appear out of nowhere and then disappear as
they're
quickly
accusing the dog.
after they attacked me? So that helped. He was one of like a half a dozen people who testified in court against Susanna Martin. And she was one of the...
Ay, ay, ay. Oh, we're going to the other side. Isaacs.
Back on the yellow.
I mean, it's good to walk. It's just too much listening to him talking about the witch. And then it's not true.
I mean, it happens.
Yeah, it happens. 19 or 300 accused, yeah. Did the judge died or... Oh, okay. I thought he got hanged too.
No, but the governor said I.
So, so what's got to do now with the church? Oh, because the...
You gotta listen to what he said.
Okay,
He'll tell you.
okay.
In winter of 1692, 12-year-old Ann Putnam accuses 38-year-old Sarah Good of being a witch, along with her 4-year-old daughter, Dorothy Good. So both mother and daughter are arrested and charged with witchcraft and thrown in jail, the Salem jail. And Sarah is pregnant in jail with her daughter, and the authorities make it very clear, like they were with Elizabeth Proctor, that if and when you are found guilty, we'll wait till you give birth, and then we'll hang you. And that's exactly what they did with Sarah. She gives birth to her baby girl, Mercy Good. She dies about a week or two after they hang her. They put the rope around her neck, and she's about to hang, and somebody from the crowd comes up to her, a minister by the name of Nicholas Noyes from the next town over in Beverly, Massachusetts, who's attending her execution, and he says, you know, why don't you just confess already to being a witch? help us out. You can maybe help us out by naming names. This would be the last thing you do before you die. But that said, she responds by saying, I am no more a witch minister than you or anybody else in this crowd. Shame on you for even trying to get me to admit to being something I'm not. And she quotes from, I believe it's Ezekiel 16:6. I think it's Ezekiel. She says, God will punish you because God will give you your own blood to drink. And with that said, she hangs. And a few years later, Nicholas Noyes coughs up his own blood and dies. And a lot of people in town said it was the curse of Sarah Good that took the life of Nicholas Noyes. And so the mother's dead. The 4-year-old's still sitting in jail. They haven't released her yet. So if you think that Ann Putnam Jr., this little girl, is done with the good family, she's not. So her father goes to the authorities and says, you know what, my daughter Ann, she's telling us that Dorothy Good is using her. She may be sitting in jail, but she's able to leave her body behind in jail and enter our home late at night, and she's coming into my daughter's bedroom, as my daughter tells me, he says, and she's coming up to my daughter's bed in the middle of the night when everybody's asleep, wakes up my daughter and says, you killed my mother, so I'm coming for you next. You're next, I'm getting you. And so these people in 1692 Salem, they've been believing in supernatural stuff for centuries, and they believe that if you make handcuffs or shackles for people's ankles out of iron, they believe that iron has magical properties that can protect you from witches' spirits or specters that leave their bodies behind from, move around town. So I've seen the bills online. A lot of the stuff has been all scanned and digitized for researchers to look at. And they hired a blacksmith. The blacksmith made up a special set of handcuffs and ankle shackles out of iron. They put the handcuffs and shackles in the 4-year-old, shackled her left and right foot to their cell for 5 months.
Wow.
Tried to keep her witch's specter from leaving her body and entering Ann Putnam's bedroom and harassing her. So that was finally when the townspeople said, enough.
Enough.
They let this 4-year-old girl go home with family, even though her mother's been dead. The baby girl, Mercy Good, she died in jail. They wouldn't let the baby go. They said, mother's a witch, the baby's a witch. So the baby died a couple days after the mother died, unfortunately, due to neglect. This girl, Ann, went after 2 women, a woman and a child. And she never mentions it in her apology. 14 years later, she only talks about Rebecca Nurse and her sisters Mary and Sarah. But you can imagine they must have asked her about it years later. Why did you accuse a 4-year-old of being a witch? But there was, as far as we know, there's no mention of it in any personal papers about her explanation for accusing a 4-year-old girl of being a witch. But does anybody have any questions? All right, we're going to head over to the Witch Dungeon Museum, and right up this way.
We're going to the museum.
Look at the outside, Mom.
Oh, just outside.
Yeah, it's an outside tour.
Outside tour.
See all the beautiful New England architecture.
Mm-hmm. Nice colors over there.
Oh, yeah, pretty tree.
Pretty tree. It's a big church. Huh?
With the church certificate, I know this time of year in October, you have to make online reservations to be able to, walk through it constantly, because it's one of the most visited graveyards in this area, because of the witch hunts area. But none of the victims are actually buried in that graveyard. So when these people were found guilty of witchcraft and executed, these 19 men and women, they were the Reverend Green of the First Church of Salem in 1692, he actually excommunicated each and every one of these 19 men and women after they were convicted and hanged. And he said they were not permitted to be buried in hallowed ground. So we don't know where they're buried. They were denied burial in the graveyard. What we suspect is they were going for off back to their land.
Do you need water, Mom?
I'm good right now. Thank you. We are going around town.
That's what
There's-
you call a tour.
Touring. We are touring.
You are turista.
Turista. Oh,
Wait, now, Friday.
What's that? The World Series? What is it being played on?
Baseball.
So they do a live reenactment upstairs. It's about a 25-minute presentation. The words spoken by these actors up on the stage are taken directly from the trial transcripts. The accusers and the accused. Then they take you for a tour of the dungeons down below, what it was like to be held prisoner. So the building itself, the original jail, as I mentioned earlier in the tour, that's long gone. It stood a couple blocks away on Federal Street. Went out to we go
which
down over
dungeon?
to the
Dungeon.
Memorial.
Oh, that's how you spell dungeon.
Underneath the left flag, there's two plaques. There's a tiny one on the top left, a much bigger one to the top right. The one on the right is much older than the one on the top left. The one on the right says, on this spot once stood the original Salem jail, 1692. That sign doesn't belong there. It's secured by heavy bolts in this brick wall, and maybe they realized after the fact that the sign didn't belong there. They didn't want to do damage to the brick wall. So what they did was they just glued a sign to the top left that said ignore the sign to the right. So the devices out front, these are stocks. These
Like
were
my hat.
popular in New England in the 17th century by the Puritans. The Puritans, it was a theocracy here in New England in the early days of the 17th century when they came over in the 1620s. They did not allow anyone to challenge the laws of the land. So there was the blue laws in New England in the 17th century. One of the blue laws included things like you had to go to church on a regular basis. If you didn't go to church, the minister didn't see you every Sunday.
Slow battery.
The stocks.
It's
every
warm.
Sunday, Bridget Bishop, one of the accused witches, she was
Good
she
for
wasn't a
winter,
regular
though.
attendant of the church every Sunday. She was a regular individual found in those stocks throughout the 1680s, 1690s. Also, when the Puritans came over, they interpreted the Bible a little differently than everybody else, especially with the Old Testament. They said, they said that the Bible says Christmas is on December 25th, the day that Christ was born. But then they said, how do we know? If there's no evidence he was born on December 25th.
Correct.
So they said, unless we get concrete evidence that he was actually born on December 25th, we don't recognize Christmas on December 25th. We don't recognize it as a holiday. We don't recognize it as Christ's birthday. So they didn't celebrate Christmas. So from 1660 to 1680, all around this area, including Salem, if you were a Puritan, you didn't celebrate Christmas on December 25th because it was just, as far as they were concerned, it was just a made-up date for them. So it wasn't until a lot of Anglicans coming over in the 1680s where they're celebrating Christmas, they recognized December 25th as the day of his birth. So that's when you see the laws being relaxed a little bit after the 1680s.
It's warm.
Sorry about that. My battery's dying. Alright, so we're going to head up the road to our next
doing something to his thing.
Uh-huh. The witches is doing something on his microphone.
Goodness. What'd you do, Mom?
That's nice building.
Pretty.
I wonder if this is the court where they get judged.
I don't know. He said none of that's still standing.
Oh, okay.
I don't even think they know where.
Because it was just made of wood, you know.
Oh, yeah, back then.
I live with her.
Oh. Gallo. What's gallo?
Are you home?
Museum. Hold on. Let me take a video. A gallo. This is where they hang the witches. That's where they hang the witches. Here's the witch. Where'd they go?
I think it's there, like, in the Sonic building.
Uh-huh.
Somewhere around in here is where they actually hang them.
Ah. I thought we are going inside the witch house.
Going inside anywhere.
We're just gonna be walking.
It's a walking
Ay.
tour.
Walking tour. Are we crossing the road or crossing the street? Oh. They way far behind. Oh, 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 oh. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
They ain't gotta stop by long.
Okay.
This gentleman, one of these gentlemen that testified against her, claimed that he was over at her apple orchard this time of the year, I guess, stealing apples from her apple orchard. And he claimed that he felt things hitting him from above, and he looked above the apple orchard and saw, he claimed in court, that he saw her hovering above him on a broomstick and tossing apples down at him, yelling at him to get off the land. And somebody in the court, this is from the trial.
Muyo Migalab shout out. Andito kami sa Boston, Salem.
A woman flying a broomstick above her apple orchard, hitting you with apples. He says, well, I still have the bruises on my head. And he walked over, leaned over, and people felt the bruises and bumps and said, oh, yeah, that's good enough for us. So she's in the courtroom with Ann Putnam and her. She's got 5 or 6 different friends of hers. And these are the real troublemakers, these girls, 5 or 6, 12, 13, 14-year-old girls. And every time Bridget Bishop is looking over at the girls would writhe with pain, screaming out her name, stop, Bridget, stop hurting us, and with your witchcraft. And the judge has already made up his mind. He thinks that she's guilty. And so he orders her to stop hurting
Crazy,
the
huh?
children. And so
Accusing
her
of
response is,
doing
he says,
nothing,
I'm
you know?
not a witch. I don't know what these girls are up to, why they're doing this. I don't know anything about witches. I've never cast a spell. I don't know anyone who has ever cast a spell. I'm quite ignorant about witchcraft. And
Probably.
the judge responds, Bridget, how do you know that you are not a witch? And yet, not know what a witch is. You say you don't know anything about witches. Maybe you're a witch and you just don't realize it. That was his argument.
That was hard argument. It doesn't make sense, huh? We're still walking tour.
February 1877, Alexander Correctel demonstrated
Asian street food.
Oh, it looks like you.
Yeah. Let's say what kind of Asian. Is this the entrance
I don't know. No, I think it's over here.
over here?
Are you hungry?
No, just chismoso. Just being chismosa. Look like it's closed. It's closed. It's closed.
Their company folks? They open at 4.
Why do we need to pay all this extra money for this, what somebody called a fad, that would die in a few years?
Somebody called what?
Why do we need to pick up a phone and talk to somebody when we can just send a perfectly good telegram for a few pennies? And he said, no, but you can actually hear your loved one on the phone. You're not just going to send and receive telegrams. And it took a few years for people to finally realize, how great that idea was. Ironically now, what?
Oh, there's a witch.
Yeah, I know. Ironically, all these years
Sorry.
later, we have a perfectly good working phone in our pocket. Instead of talking to a loved one, what do? We send an electronic telegram, text messages. So boy, Alexander Graham Bell, he's probably thinking, oh boy. All right, so see that building over there on the left?
Building on the left.
Why are you yelling?
Me? Oh. I just want to make sure people can hear. Sorry.
What is the building on the left?
He don't have a microphone.
Because there's a witch.
Why you're yelling?
I just want to make sure everyone knows.
This is where we park, huh?
This is where we tried to park.
Oh, we tried.
We parked at the parking garage, remember?
Mm-hmm.
I want to stop by the mall before we leave. I gotta get Pablo a sweater.
Okay.
He wants a sweater.
No problem.
Happy you guys are.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Wow, how many miles we been walking? 5 miles.
Whatever the forever number is.
That's what you call a walking tour.
It is a walking tour. We walked like 2 miles.
2 miles already?
Well, that's how much I've walked today.
I could walk 2 miles in about an hour at work.
You only walk 2 miles an hour?
Mega love shout out guys. Nilive ko na para hindi na ako mag-record. Nalubat na pala ako eh. Nilive ko na para hindi na ako mag-edit ng videos. Hirap mag-edit kasi ng video eh. Ilang hours na ba ako?
That they pulled up the gravestones in the 19th century, left the bodies
I'm sorry.
built on top of the bodies,
Sorry.
and then lined up the gravestones at the front door, which you see today.
St. Peter.
But one of the witchcraft trial was filming when she was accused of being a witch. She flees for New York, comes back about 16 months later, and years later he donated his land to have this church built on his land.
That's
But,
nice.
he and his wife were accused of being witches. They fled along with a couple other people. Mary Bradbury, she flees for New York, comes back, and years later she has several more kids. Her kids had kids, and those kids had kids. And 9 generations later, in the early 1900s, Mary Bradbury's her great grandson, 9 generations in the future was off the great Bradbury.
Oh, very nice.
So some say if she had died, he never would have been born. Those books never would have been written. So we will head up
Lobat na ako.